that it becomes blindingly obvious. A power so intense that it was demonized, hidden, and distorted across the centuries. Not because it was dangerous in itself, but because it brought human beings face to face with their own divinity. This power has many names: Kundalini, the serpent fire, the vital energy. But there exists a particular path walked by only a few, a path concealed in the darkest corridors of spiritual traditions: sexual alchemy. From the pyramids of Egypt to Tibetan monasteries, from Hermetic writings to tantric treatises, an invisible thread connects masters and disciples in an ancient art. The art of transmuting raw desire into conscious creative force, capable of attracting, manifesting, and transforming reality itself. But why then has sexuality been surrounded by so much fear? Why were the temples of the body turned into territories of shame? What happens when that energy, instead of being dissipated, is channeled, elevated, and directed toward a higher purpose? Perhaps the answer to what you most desire, whether love, prosperity, fulfillment, or spiritual expansion, is not outside, but in how you deal with your own inner fire. Today, we will explore forbidden territory, not because it is dangerous, but because it is liberating. Are you ready? Since the dawn of humanity, sexuality has been perceived as both a divine and dangerous force. It's no coincidence that nearly every mythology includes stories where fire, a symbol of vital energy, desire, creation, is stolen or challenged by mortals. Prometheus, in Greek mythology, dares to steal fire from the gods and give it to humanity. This fire was not merely literal flame, but the capacity to create, to master, to transform reality. And the price? Eternal punishment. Chained to a rock, his liver devoured daily by an eagle. But the myth transcends punishment. It speaks of a boundary imposed by the gods upon humans, the limit of accessing and manipulating their own creative energy. The ancients knew sexual energy is the inner fire, not just the reproductive instinct, but the very spark of life itself. That's why the temples of Isis in Egypt, the tantric practices of India, and the Dionysian rituals of Greece never separated the erotic from the spiritual. The body was a living temple. The union of opposites in the sexual act mirrored the cosmic union. This dual nature of sexual energy was always understood by the masters. It is the energy that can enslave or liberate, that can bind to fleeting pleasure or open portals to divine ecstasy. In Hermeticism, this energy is symbolized in the caduceus of Hermes, two serpents entwined around a central staff. That central staff represents the spinal column itself, the axis where the serpent fire sleeps, waiting to be awakened. But how was this energy veiled throughout history? Why did sexuality, once sacred, become taboo, sin, shame? The answer lies in the immanent power this energy carries. Ancient civilizations understood that those who master their creative energy master their reality. A person who governs their own fire needs no intermediaries, no external authorities to access the divine. They themselves become temple, priest, and god. Religious, political, and social institutions realized that to maintain control over the masses, it was necessary to disconnect human beings from their own source of power. They turned pleasure into guilt, desire into sin, the body into an enemy. And the fire that should have ascended the spine as light began to descend and dissipate like smoke. In Egypt, the practice of anastasis, or resurrection of the vital energy, was taught in the temples of Isis and Osiris. It wasn't about the literal resurrection of dead bodies, but the awakening of dormant energy within the living body. Initiates learned to channel sexual energy to nourish the higher centers of consciousness, rising from the base of the spine to the crown of the head, transforming desire into vision, instinct into intuition, pleasure into power. Creative energy is ambivalent. It can nourish or destroy. It is eros and thanatos, life and death. That's why ancient cultures surrounded sexuality with symbols, rituals, and myths. Not to repress it, but to protect it. They knew that without awareness, fire becomes wildfire. But with awareness, fire becomes light. Today, in modern society, we live a profound paradox. We are sexually stimulated at every corner, yet energetically exhausted. We lost the thread that once connected desire to the sacred. We turned fire into spectacle, into product, into addiction. But the spark is still there, dormant, waiting to be awakened, not through external acts, but in the inner silence of one who dares to look within. And perhaps that was the greatest theft of all. Not the fire of the gods given to man, but man stolen from his own connection with the fire. Sexual alchemy, then, is the recovery of that lost fire. It is the return to the inner garden where the masculine and feminine, the sun and moon, heaven and earth meet, not outside, but within each of us. And in that meeting, there is no more separation. Desire is no longer the enemy. The body is no longer a prison. The fire is no longer sin. The fire finally becomes liberation. If, in the first chapter, we saw that sexual energy is the fire stolen from the gods, here we enter the heart of the great work. The act of transforming that raw fire into a conscious, creative force. Because it's not enough to possess the fire. One must know what to do with it. The alchemists called this transmutation, a powerful word, but often misunderstood. Many think that to transmute is to suppress, control, or repress. But no. To transmute is to take something in its densest form and elevate it to a more subtle vibration without destroying its essence. It is turning lead into gold without denying the lead. In the context of sexual energy, this means not wasting it, not dissolving it, not losing it in unconscious orgasm, but channeling it, accumulating it, redirecting it toward higher purposes. Taoist master Mantak Chia teaches in his writings on cultivating sexual energy that the human body contains a celestial microcosm where energy meridians follow specific pathways, connecting the organs to the vital centers. Sexual energy, he explains, can be moved from the genitals to the brain, from instinct to intuition, from desire to insight. This is not a vague spiritual metaphor. It's a concrete practice involving breath, visualization, and contraction of specific muscles. The Tantric tradition calls this sublimation, guiding the energy upward through the subtle channels of the spine, from the base, Muladhara, to the crown, Sahasrara, awakening Kundalini, the sleeping serpent. But the goal is not merely to retain sexual energy. The goal is to transform its quality. Wilhelm Reich, the psychoanalyst who dared to confront the taboo of sexual energy in the West, said that repressed or ungoverned orgasm was the root of modern neurosis. But he also pointed to a third way, the conscious integration of sexual energy. For Reich, the orgone, this cosmic vital energy, could be stored in the human body and used as creative force, not merely sexual. Here lies the key to transmutation. Desire doesn't need to be eliminated. It needs to be purified. The sexual alchemist does not flee from desire, does not deny it, does not demonize it. He faces it directly, without being consumed by it. It's like harnessing the power of a dam. If you just open the floodgates, the water destroys. But if you channel it through turbines, it generates electricity. Desire is the water. Consciousness is the turbine. Hermetic traditions have long spoken of the importance of alchemical chastity, but this is not about literal abstinence. It is about not unconsciously wasting the creative force. Yes, it is absolutely possible to live an active sexual life and still transmute energy, so long as the act is not merely physical, but conscious, ritualized, intentional. Sexual alchemy is an inner symphony where physical pleasure and spiritual elevation dance together. In Kundalini awakening, each chakra it passes through represents an integrated level of consciousness, a purification of energy from its densest aspects until it becomes pure light at the crown. But this process requires discipline, patience, repetition. This is not a one-night practice, it is a path. A path which, as Paracelsus said, is not for the cowardly nor the impatient. That is why the alchemists always spoke of the secret fire, the fire that burns without consuming, the fire that warms without destroying. This fire is the mastered, purified, transmuted sexual energy. When the alchemist manages to keep it burning without consuming his own temple, he becomes an internal source of inexhaustible power. The practical consequence, this fire turns into personal magnetism, unexplainable charisma, a force of attraction that borders on the supernatural. The transmuted alchemist does not need to beg, to chase, to demand. He attracts, not because he manipulates others, but because he has transformed himself. The desire that once reached outward now radiates from within, and the world, like an obedient mirror, reflects what is vibrating at his core. This is true transmutation. Desire does not die, it is reborn as creative power. But as the ancient masters warned, power without purity of intention is dangerous. That is why the heart must be purified before the fire is intensified. Because the greater the fire, the more it illuminates, or the more it burns. The art of transmutation, then, is not a magical trick to manipulate external reality, but the oldest and most powerful magic of all, the power to transform oneself. Magnetization. When sexual energy is transmuted, it doesn't disappear. It transforms into an invisible force that begins to radiate from within the human being, like a magnetic field affecting everything around it. The human body becomes a living magnet, and this magnetization is not merely symbolic. It is bioenergetic, psychological, spiritual. Manly P. Hall wrote that the aura of an initiate becomes luminous and vibrant, radiating an influence that magnetizes everything around, even without words. This magnetism is felt. It cannot be seen with the naked eye, but it acts like personal gravity, a force of attraction that transcends appearance, speech, or status. Modern science is just beginning to touch this phenomenon. Research in bioelectromagnetism has already shown that the human heart generates an electromagnetic field thousands of times more powerful than that of the brain. Studies by the HeartMath Institute, especially the work titled The Electricity of Touch, Detection and Measurement of Cardiac Energy Exchange Between People, suggests that this field not only influences one's own body, but also interacts with the electromagnetic fields of those nearby, indicating subtle energetic communication between individuals. But mystics go further. They affirm that sexual energy, when sublimated and elevated, amplifies this aura, this field, this invisible magnetism. It's as if the body becomes an inner sun, radiating frequencies capable of attracting situations aligned with that vibration. Taoism calls this De, the magnetic virtue, the natural power of attraction that arises in one who is aligned with the Tao. In Hermeticism, it is the manifestation of the astral light, the ethereal field where all thoughts, emotions, and intentions are recorded and circulate. When transmuted sexual energy is deposited into this astral light, it begins to shape probabilities, bending the paths of reality in the direction of conscious intention. Carl Jung, in his reflections on the collective unconscious, said that eros is not just the sexual instinct, but the psychic force that connects and unites all things. This force operates silently, weaving invisible threads between people, events, and opportunities. Here lies a profound paradox. The more someone seeks externally, the more reality retreats. The more someone overflows from within, the more reality draws near. True magnetism is not an effort to attract, it is a state of being. That is why the great masters of sexual alchemy were often described as fascinating, irresistible, radiant, not because of their appearance, but because they carried a dense, vibrating, luminous energy field. This magnetism was also known as personal power, but not in the modern sense of manipulating or controlling others. It was the power of being so full, so whole, so complete within oneself that the universe began to reorganize itself around that center. Sexual alchemy, then, doesn't just attract people sexually, it attracts opportunities, synchronicities, abundance, insights. Because creative energy, when not leaked, seeks other ways to express itself. If it's not exhausted in physical pleasure, it turns into creativity, courage, vision. Nikola Tesla, one of the greatest minds in history, attributed his creative capacity to the sublimation of sexual energy. There are accounts that Tesla avoided physical relationships not out of moralism, but because he understood that this energy was his creative fuel. He transformed it into focus, invention, and connection with the field of ideas. The modern sexual alchemist may or may not choose celibacy. It is not literal abstinence that generates magnetism, but consciousness. It is the deliberate use of energy. It is the act of maintaining elevated intention and awakened presence even amid physical pleasure. To not lose the center means not to be completely overtaken by the automatism of pleasure, as one who acts on impulse without direction. It means being fully present, with body and soul in the same place. The forgetting of self occurs when desire takes the reins and awareness fades, when pleasure becomes an escape instead of a portal, when the human being is reduced to a reactive mechanism and loses the thread of presence. That is the real waste, not the energy itself, but that it escapes without intention, without purpose, without consciousness. Unconscious orgasm drains because it disperses vital force with no return. Conscious orgasm nourishes because it elevates that same force and reintegrates it into the being. When energy is transmuted, it begins to vibrate at more subtle frequencies. It's like throwing a stone into a lake. The ripples expand, touch the shores, and return to the center. Everything you send out comes back. But in sexual alchemy, what you send is not just mental intention. It is intention charged with vital energy. And that gives weight, force, and magnetism to desire. That's why in tantric and hermetic traditions, a warning is often given. To transmute without purifying the heart is to create a powerful magnet without direction. Because sexual energy amplifies everything. If there is shadow, it amplifies the shadow. If there is light, it amplifies the light. Invisible magnetism, then, is not a technique to get what you want, but a path to become what you desire. And by becoming, the universe responds. The external world is merely a mirror of inner vibration, and transmuted sexual energy is the polishing of that mirror. The brilliance that begins to reflect more clearly what truly resides at the center of your being. In the end, we don't attract what we ask for, we attract what we are. And sexual alchemy is the process of raising that self to its highest vibration so that everything around comes into resonance with it. This magnetism cannot be taught in books. It cannot be faked. It cannot be bought. It emanates. And wherever it reaches, the world responds. Because at its core, the entire universe dances around the one who has become a sun. Practices. Theory without practice is just beautiful words. Sexual alchemy requires concrete actions, daily discipline, patient cultivation of the inner fire. Here, we will reveal practical techniques that will help you begin the path of transmutation. But remember, these practices require respect. This is not a game, not an experiment out of mere curiosity. You are working with the most powerful force in your body, the force that creates life. Approach this with intention, reverence, and awareness. Practice 1. The microcosmic orbit. This is the foundation of Taoist sexual alchemy. The microcosmic orbit is the circulation of energy through two main meridians, the front and back channels of your body. How to perform. Sit in a comfortable position with a straight back. Close your eyes and take several deep breaths, calming the mind. Direct your attention to the perineum area between the genitals and anus. This is the Hui Yin point, the gate of vital energy. Feel warmth or tingling there. On the inhale, visualize energy rising up the spine, from the perineum through the tailbone, sacrum, lower back, between the shoulder blades, back of the head, and reaching the crown. Hold your breath for a second at the crown. Feel the energy pulsing there. On the exhale, lower the energy down the front of the body, from the crown through the forehead, nose, throat, chest, solar plexus, belly, and back to the perineum. Repeat this cycle 9 to 36 times daily. Start small and gradually increase. This practice teaches your body to move sexual energy upward rather than dissipate it outward. Over time, you will feel your entire body becoming filled, vibrating, alive. Practice 2. Root lock and fire breathing. This technique comes from tantric and yogic traditions. It teaches you to hold and elevate sexual energy through muscular control and conscious breathing. How to perform. Stand or sit. Take a deep breath through your nose, filling your belly. On the exhale, sharply contract your pelvic floor muscles, the same muscles you use to stop urination. This is Mula Bandha, the root lock. Hold the contraction for 5 to 10 seconds, holding your breath. Visualize energy from the base of your spine being drawn upward, as if you're drinking it through your spinal column. Release the lock and slowly inhale, relaxing. Repeat 10 to 20 times. Advanced variation. Perform this practice in the moment of sexual arousal, but before orgasm. When you feel climax approaching, stop, engage the root lock, hold your breath, and direct the energy upward through your spine. This allows you to experience an internal, full-body orgasm without loss of energy. Masters call this the valley orgasm. It's not peak-based, but wave-like, not depleting, but nourishing. Practice 3. Solo sexual meditation. Many think sexual alchemy requires a partner, but the truth is, the deepest work begins alone, with yourself. How to perform. Create sacred space. Find solitude, dim the lights, light a candle or incense. This is not mere masturbation. This is ritual. Lie down or sit comfortably. Begin with breathing. Deep, slow inhales and exhales. Drop into a state of relaxed awareness. Begin touching your body not with the goal of quickly reaching pleasure, but to awaken energy. Slowly, consciously, reverently. Your body is a temple, and you are the priest or priestess performing a sacred rite. When arousal builds, don't rush toward orgasm. Instead, stop at the threshold. Use breath and pelvic floor contraction to redirect the energy upward. Visualize the energy rising up your spine, illuminating each chakra. Imagine it reaching your heart and filling it with love. Your throat, giving you the voice of truth. Your third eye, opening vision. Your crown, connecting with the divine. Spend 20 to 40 minutes in this state. You can approach the edge of orgasm several times and return, accumulating energy. At the end, sit in meditation with your hands on your heart or belly. Feel how your body vibrates, pulses with life. This is transmuted energy. Practice 4. Conscious sexual union. If you have a partner, sexual alchemy can be practiced together, but this requires full consent, trust, and shared intention. How to perform. Begin with ritual. Take a shower or bath. Create sacred space, candles, music, incense. Sit facing each other, gazing into each other's eyes. Synchronize your breathing. Inhale and exhale together for several minutes. Feel your energetic fields beginning to merge. Set intention. Say to each other aloud or silently, "We are here not just for pleasure, but for elevation, for transformation, for union with the divine through our bodies." When intimacy begins, move slowly. Don't rush. Each touch is a transmission of energy. Each gaze is a recognition of soul. The man practices semen retention. This is not suppression of orgasm, but its transformation. In the moment of approaching climax, he stops, breathes deeply, contracts the pelvic floor, and visualizes energy rising up the spine. Orgasm happens not in the genitals, but throughout the entire body, in every cell. The woman directs her energy upward through breath and intention. Her orgasm can be multiple, wave-like, expanding. She becomes the ocean, and he, diving into that ocean, but not dissolving in it. After union, don't rush to separate. Remain in embrace, connected. Breathe together. Feel your energies circulating between you, creating a unified field. This is not sex for sex's sake. This is an alchemical operation where two become one, and one becomes a portal to the divine. Practice 5. Morning Energy Awakening. How you begin your day determines your energy for the entire day. This simple practice awakens the inner fire every morning. How to perform. Immediately upon waking, still lying in bed, place your hands on your lower belly below the navel. This is the Dantian area in Taoism, the center of life force. Breathe deeply into this area. Visualize a golden ball of light pulsing there. Men, gently massage the testicles in circular motions 36 times. This stimulates testosterone production and awakens sexual energy. Women, massage the breasts and ovary area in circular motions. This balances hormones and awakens feminine power. Then perform 9 cycles of the microcosmic orbit as described in the first practice. Stand up, stretch, do a few deep squats or simple exercises so energy begins flowing through your entire body. This practice takes 10 to 15 minutes but sets the tone for the whole day. You begin not with checking your phone or rushing, but with conscious awakening of your life force. Practice 6. Cold immersion and contrast. Ancient yogis and Taoists knew, contrasting temperatures stimulate energy circulation and strengthen life force. How to perform. After a warm shower, Switch the water to cold for 30 to 60 seconds. Breathe deeply. Don't resist the shock. Focus on the perineum area and lower belly. Visualize the cold water awakening the dormant energy there. Repeat 3 to 5 cycles. Warm water, then cold. Cold forces the body to mobilize internal resources, strengthens willpower, and prevents energy leakage through the skin. This is an ancient practice of hardening not just the body, but the spirit. Practice 7. Orgasm fasting. This is not a prohibition, but an experiment. Choose a period, a week, 2 weeks, a month, when you consciously abstain from orgasm with ejaculation or energy-depleting orgasm. The goal is not suppression, but observation. What happens with your energy, with your focus, with your creativity, with your magnetism? During this period, actively practice the other techniques: the microcosmic orbit, breathing, meditation. Direct the accumulated energy into projects, creativity, physical activity. Many discover that after 2 to 3 weeks, there's a sharp rise in life force. The mind becomes sharper, the body stronger, presence more intense. This is not a call for lifelong celibacy. This is a tool for understanding your own energy and making conscious choices about how to use it. Practice 8. Visualization and intention. Sexual energy is not just physical force. It is creative force that materializes intentions. How to perform. During any of the above practices, when you feel energy is accumulated and circulating, add clear intention. What do you want to attract into your life? Love? Abundance? Health? Creative breakthrough? Spiritual awakening? Visualize it with maximum detail. See, feel, sense it as if it has already happened. And in the moment of peak energy, when energy reaches your heart or third eye, release this intention into the universe like an arrow from a bow. Then, let go. Don't cling. Don't beg. Trust that the intention charged with life force has already begun its journey into the material plane. Final instructions. These practices are not quick tricks for instant results. This is a path. The path requires patience, consistency, humility. Start with one practice. Master it for 30 days before adding the next. Sexual alchemy is a marathon, not a sprint. Keep a journal. Record your observations, changes in energy, dreams, synchronicities, attraction. This will help you track transformation. Be honest with yourself. If you slip, don't blame yourself. Simply begin again. Every morning is a new opportunity. And remember, the goal is not accumulating power for control over others. The goal is transforming yourself. Becoming so whole, so radiant, so loving that the world cannot help but respond in kind. The fire within you is waiting. It has always been there, smoldering, patient, eternal. The time has come to fan it into a flame that will illuminate not only your life, but the lives of all who cross your path. The path is open. The first step is yours. Thank you for your attention.